am here to present the findings of a study that was developed to test, validate, and apply a qualitative measure to assess the difference between characteristics of long-term and short-term couples. The research followed an exploratory design, as the first part was qualitative, and then a recommendation was made at the end for a quantitative piece to further validate the data. The qualitative portion comprised of interviews with 20 long-term couples that was coded for themes that will be discussed hereafter. The definition for long-term couples in this study was couples that were living together, married, with at least one child that was 6 years old, and they were at least 10 years married. Okay, so the research comprised of 3 phases. There was the collection of the data, the analysis of the data, which was coded line by line, to explore the data for categories, what we were finding that were common among all the scripts. So some of the categories were then further analyzed and were found to have common themes among them. The 5 themes that were extracted from the data were friendship, quality time, harmonious distribution of power, sacrifice, adaptability. So some of the examples of friendship that were found in the data were connection, common interests. For example, one couple, they loved the circus. They were in the circus together. Another couple was in scouting. There was another couple that was in the choir together, and so forth. So they had mutual interest. This is what brought them together. Then they dated prior to marriage. So this dating period allowed for more opportunities for them to get to know each other better. So there was not a rush to get into marriage. Then there were sentimental attachments, such as gifts. Remember, one couple, when getting married, the parent was able to find little love notes and letters and stuff that they would use as a part of the decor for the wedding, because they were friends from they were in elementary school, and so they had those little tokens, that had sentimental attachment. All right, the next theme was quality time. And this theme, some of the evidence from the data was they prioritized their relationship. This means that they tried not to be separated from each other, and even if they were separated from each other, they found opportunities to connect, if it's even over dates. They valued this time that they were able to spend together. They would have to craft out a special time to have that intimacy. And then sexual intimacy also played a major role, and this also came under quality time. One wife, I remember, wanted to play the sexual vixen. She wanted to subdue her husband in the bedroom. They mostly spoke comfortably about their sex life and how it helped to help them to have a stronger marriage, help them to communicate better, talk about, you know, what was working, what was not working, and just to have that special bond with one another. Harmonious power distribution. This was an interesting one. This mostly involved gender roles, who worked versus who did the caregiving. In several cases, we found that there was some role reversal, and by this I mean traditionally we're accustomed to the men being the providers and the supporters of the family, and in some of the cases we find that the women were, you know, more advanced in their career. They were more driven. They knew exactly what they wanted to do, what they wanted to do with their lives, and so they had even higher paying jobs. And then this may leave a window for the husband to be the caregiver because they want to, you know, instill their own family values on their children and not necessarily have external persons caring for their children. So this was a delicate balance, and in all the couples we saw, they found a way to make it work. I'm not going to say that throughout the data there was always harmony. There were evidence of disharmony sometimes, and I want to use that word carefully. So for example, some of the little things that were insinuated, for example, the husband would say something like, I take out the litter, or I take out the garbage, or I take out the cat litter, you know. Might seem a little menial, you know, but they use humor to talk about these things and kind of like break the ice. So there was the gender roles, the role reversal. One husband was affirmed by his wife, and she said he can run the whole household, right? Another wife said about her husband, he's flexible, he's domesticated, and he's also a breadwinner. So this husband showed a balance between being both a breadwinner and also, you know, assisting with home duties. A husband, on the other hand, described his wife and their relationship as being fluid, and by that he meant whoever needed to do the duties did it. There wasn't any real separation of duties to say, okay, this belonged to wife and this belonged to husband. Whoever got home first started cooking. Whoever saw something needing to be cleaned up started cleaning up, and so they kind of balanced things out. Gender roles also played a role in decision making because, you know, who is carrying home the money bag? But that was also a delicate issue. One couple I remember saying, you know, I don't really get too involved in the decision making. I just, you know, say what needs to be said because I think he is very sensitive to the issue that his wife is the one who is pulling in the money, and so he doesn't want to make too much of the decision. But for the most part, they switch roles as were needed and usually concede power to the money maker. Sacrifice. There was a lot of sacrifice happening throughout the data that was analyzed. One husband sacrificed his job for family life and to stay at home. So he was in scouting, he got promoted to another district, but it was causing too much of a toll on their relationship, and so he quit the job and they got a family, and he became the stay-at-home dad. And in order to, you know, as he would put it, go crazy, there were some who sacrificed friendships for proposal and marriage. I remember in one couple, they were there were many naysayers because the husband at that time, the boyfriend, was in trouble with the law. And although they didn't go into much detail with what that issue was, she was told, no, that would be bad luck. But she laughed at her naysayers in the end and said, where are they now? So she sacrificed friendship for love, and she won in the end. Then there was adaptability. We found that as the couples lived together, they began to adapt to each other more, their ways of doing things. And I remember one couple, she said the wife said she was not so bothered again by someone calling her, Mrs. Brown, because it doesn't bother her anymore. Usually she wanted to have the double barrel name, but then after a while she adapted. Adaptation also came with understanding each other, knowing that that's how the partner is, and giving grace. They finish each other's sentences, give and take, they compromise, they survive major life changes together, moving houses, jobs, having kids. And some found what you call a litmus test for success in a marriage, and they would explain that this involves listening to each other, and not just listening but attending and understanding from the other person's frame of reference. They describe their relationship as a balancing act, and they gave each other grace, as I said before. So this is the adaptability portion, which was also like compromise and also assimilation. So it's like in the end they became one, the two became one. So this was designed and drawn up in a diagram, a diagrammatic representation that had the sacrifice, quality time, the friendship, the harmonious distribution of power, all interrelating and then integrating into compatibility or adaptability, or as I said previously, assimilation. They became one. So that's the two become one, the better for worse, and they are a unit. This doesn't mean that they did not have challenges, they didn't have conflicts, but understanding each other's communication style, each other value system, likes and dislikes, personality trait, it made it so much easier for them to resolve these things. There is also a recommendation for a quantitative portion that would help to dig deeper into the data. So it was recommended that a survey, 42 question close-ended survey with approximately 10 sample questions be used to answer further questions related to long-term and short-term couples and what makes the relationship work. And the survey will be scored using a 5-point Likert scale. The scale would range from strongly agree to strongly disagree, and include not sure as a neutral option. So there will be a selection from those couples, a sample from the 20 that were interviewed to further participate in in a further quantitative study to support the findings. All right, so the data from that phase will also be analyzed using the appropriate statistical tool, and the ranges will be considered whether or not the couples had high adaptability, moderate adaptability, low adaptability, or no adaptability. Thank you for joining me.